Welcome back to the 72-Hour Reset. I'm your host, Tanya McPherson. Please give a warm welcome to our moderator, Golf Master. I'll hand it over to you, Alan. Take it away.
Hi, thank you, Tanya, for the introductions. So yeah, what I do, Alex is sell golf packages. I have a golf magazine in Myrtle Beach. I've been a golf writer in Myrtle Beach for 33 years. I was at a daily newspaper for 29. For the past four, I've had my own golf magazine called On the Green Magazine. And I also work for a company at the same time that sells golf packages. So we we set up golf trips for usually groups of people, generally in the spring and the fall, are the golf seasons here in Myrtle Beach, but we do sell golf packages year round. We are the largest provider of golf packages in the Myrtle Beach area, and golf packages combine golf tee times with lodging. And we have our company is also a property management company that has either manages or has access to thousands of hotel rooms, of condos on the ocean, of condos on golf courses. So we can put together any trip that anybody would want to come on. And what we kind of do with these podcasts is we're looking at people that are kind of based in New York City, because there's going to be travelers from Myrtle Beach that want to go to New York, and there's going to be travelers from New York that want to come to Myrtle Beach. So we kind of try to combine those two markets that are kind of a dichotomy of each other, one being a fast city with a lot to offer, and one being a slower paced, though not very slow, entirely slow, but slower than New York City with beach and golf and boating and fishing trips and that type of thing. So um, anybody that's in New York City that's interested on a golf vacation would contact me. Anybody that would want to go to, um, New York City from Myrtle Beach and experience that city trip would do that. So that being said, if kind of introduced you, but if you could possibly, go deeper into what you do and your affiliation with NASA.
Sure. Yeah. I've spent my entire career, like I said, as a space engineer in the NASA ecosystem. I worked for many years in the strategy and architecture office for human spaceflight at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. And in that role, as Tanya mentioned, I worked on the technology gaps between today's state of the art and what's required to support the upcoming Artemis missions to the moon and then humans to Mars thereafter. In addition, I developed NASA's investment prioritization methodology, as well as authored some of the official documentation on this. This is all done through various employers at NASA headquarters. And in doing so, I've helped NASA to understand essentially where are we today with technologies and where do all these technologies need to be in the future so that we can actually go and do all the things we've wanted to do basically ever since Apollo ended. And all this is coming up now with Artemis ramping up. Artemis 2 happened earlier this year, and it was just a taste of what's to come in the future. We're going to be going back to the moon to stay. Moon base is real. We're going to be going back to the moon to land for the first time in 2028. But that's just going to be the first of many missions. And the idea is to scale up basically over the next decade until humans are on the moon in a almost permanent capacity. And then from there, we're going to be scaling towards even more industrialization of the moon, as well as sending humans to Mars thereafter. At some point, there's no exact date yet, but maybe in the late 2030s, give or take. And so I've been working on all of those problems. And then um, I have this new venture to the Mars Fund with two co-founders, and we're essentially making a new space venture capital fund that is focused on not just supporting NASA's missions, but looking also at the entire space economy. So we look at the moon and Mars, but that's the hardest ones because it's the most far out and there's the least infrastructure there already, of course. And for that, we look at what does the government need? And then we also look at the broader space economy, which is growing extremely quickly. That's, most of it's orbiting the Earth. It's growing. It's something like $100 billion a year increase in size. It's really quite large. And we're looking at those at companies there. And then we're also looking to try and identify, are there technologies that are made for space that have spin-off applications back here at home, with the classic historical example being Velcro. That was invented in the 1970s, originally for a NASA application. The Skylab, which was NASA's first space station, that was the first time that U.S. astronauts were in space for an extended duration. And one thing they quickly noticed is that stuff was flying around everywhere, and it was really annoying. And they wanted to be able to stick stuff to the wall. Hence, Velcro was invented. Fast forward a decade into the 1980s, and it's on shoes everywhere. You know, you have your gloves that can close with Velcro, everything, even many sports applications. And so we're trying to identify what are some of the next ones of those for investment. And that's the core of our thesis as we're growing and we're developing this. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, earlier you mentioned the first landing on the moon. Is that like the first in so many years, is what you're referencing?
Yeah. Yeah, so the last time humans went on the moon was Apollo, and the last landing was 1972. And for a variety of reasons, we haven't been back. But the main things are just, the politics of the situation is so fluid, and it's a really large financial investment, and in order to have the sustained effort to do this, we really haven't had it until recently. And so we're going back to the moon in 2028 to stay. That's the whole point of Artemis, is to develop permanent human infrastructure on the moon and essentially begin the long process of colonizing the moon. And so that's when we go back in 2028, boots on the ground. There will be many, many more after that, leading all the way towards humans being on the moon 24/7, 365.
And are you're still actively with NASA, employed by NASA?
No,
Or
no. So I work for a different company that works with NASA, that one NASA work.
okay. What's that company called?
It's called the Aerospace Corporation.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And I guess just what are your thoughts too? I mean, I've kind of followed this from a distance, with the space exploration and the different companies that are popping up and the investment opportunities in
Hmm.
those and all that. I guess um what are your thoughts on NASA's continued involvement in it? Because some of this has kind of become switched over to the private sector, right? And
Yeah.
then well, I guess what are your thoughts on NASA's continued involvement in the space exploration with the proliferation of all of these private companies? And then where does your fund uh, fit within the realm of the privatization that includes SpaceX, I guess, and Blue Origin? How would you kind of
Yeah.
fit it in what you're trying to do?
Absolutely. So if you look at the past, the way that it worked is that, doing stuff in space was too hard. You couldn't really have companies be able to do it. It was just too much of an overhead investment. So the government was the only actor that could actually do these things. That has changed. And one of the reasons why it's changed is because it's been one of NASA's core policies to try and grow out the American space industry. NASA sees itself as not just overseeing the U.S. government's space program, but really overseeing all of American space exploration beyond just the government. And what that means is that part of what NASA wants to do is to foster a healthy, thriving industrial base that also is focusing on space and can help achieve economies of scale in ways that industry is better at doing rather than government. And so, if you look at recent times, we've seen, SpaceX do all the things that SpaceX has been doing, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, because the space technology spans this huge swath of types of technologies. It's almost like every facet of civilization just in space. And the two areas that have commercialized already are, first, communications. We use it, we have cell phones, etc. And then also propulsion over the past 20 years. These are just the first two of many areas that are on the cusp of commercializing for the first time. And so NASA sees its role moving forward in many ways as a force multiplier for industry. NASA is essentially setting the table and giving opportunities for industry to have a seat at that table. And how well these companies do is really a function of how they perform. The better they perform, the more government funding they get. And therefore, there's really this incentive structure to continue to contribute and continue to innovate, to continue to reduce costs and produce more and more, to really create an industrial ecosystem for space. And in truth, there's really no other country that's even close to matching the US in terms of these capabilities and what we've been able to do to foster this ecosystem. When it comes to companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, like, yeah, these are some of the shining examples, but these are also propulsion companies. It should be mentioned. And there's many other types of technologies that are on the way that might be like SpaceX or Blue Origin, but in different fields. And so what we do is at the Mars Fund is we're identifying a lot of these earlier stage companies that are really working on this core infrastructure that we expect to get really, really big in the coming years and to help fund these new technology areas to grow over time.
Pretty cool. Yeah, man. I guess how did you get into this field? What made you want to be involved in space exploration?
Yeah, I don't know. It's cool, when look people are little kids, they want to be, a firefighter, or a doctor, an astronaut, whatever it is, and a paleontologist. For me, I wanted to be an astronaut, and I never stopped wanting to go down that path. So I just was kind of pure of heart wanting to continue down this and work in space exploration.
Nice. Yeah, I feel fortunate that I was similarly driven to, I picked what I wanted to do, knew I would enjoy doing it, and followed it, which was basically being a sports writer and being paid to go to sporting events and watch sports. And
It's great.
uh,
I love sports. Yeah, I go to baseball games all the time. I'm a huge Yankees fan. I was at two World Cup games recently. It was a great time.
yeah, yeah, and be as moving to Myrtle Beach and working in Myrtle Beach, that's where I had been a golf writer already in Boston and Texas, but when I came to Myrtle Beach is a huge golf. Golf is the thing here, so um, that's when I became really a heavy golf writer. Covered the Masters 18 years in a row and went to U.S. Opens, PGA Championships, Ryder Cups, different events like the ones regionally, the RBC Heritage in Hilton Head Island, the what was the Wells Fargo Championship in Charlotte. I'd cover those every year. So I got like the 18 years in Hilton Head, 15 years in Charlotte. Yeah, it's just it's a beautiful thing to be paid to watch golf and play golf and be involved in the golf industry here in Myrtle Beach. It's a good time here. So, do you travel? Do you play golf much at all yourself? And I don't mean
Uh,
travel.
I've played golf occasionally, but I've never gotten too deep into it. But I do love it. Every time I've played, I've had a great time. I travel a fair amount. With work, I'm traveling. With the fund, I'm traveling around. Going to conferences, speaking at events, getting the name out there, as it were. Plus, I just love travel in general, and I've traveled all over the world just in my free time as well, just because I enjoy seeing the world. I work in space exploration. That's exploration. I enjoy also exploring new places at a personal level as well.
Yeah, yeah. Traveling is the spice of life, if you ask me. And
I agree.
I usually just keep it on the world, the earth, personally.
Yeah, well, maybe one day we'll have tourist trips to the moon. May happen not too long from now, assuming everything goes according to plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been to Asia, Europe, South and Central America, all over the Caribbean. I've traveled quite a bit, and I enjoy it's enjoyable to see how other people live, other cultures, and there's 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 differences in just in the United States. If you travel from the Northeast to Texas, it's a completely different environment in Southern Texas than it is in New England. It's almost not like it's not the same country, really. But yeah, so and we do I've talked about my my travel company, the package company for golfers. But I've got the golf magazine now is on the Green magazine, so just wanted to inform people of that. And so that's basically just up to date golf news in Myrtle Beach. We'll have some feature stories on characters in the area that are involved in the game. Um, but recent stories are we have a Legends golf resort that has 3 golf courses. They are in the process of building a par three, a 9-hole par three course right behind the clubhouse, and that's going to be pretty cool looking. Um, we've got a golf course, International World Tour Golf Links, that just opened up a technology range where they have all the TrackMan things on the range itself. So when you go hit balls, you can watch, you can track your ball flight, you can track your hitting angles and do all that, your body with. So that they've just opened that. That just opened last weekend. Um, and these type of things are all stories that are on that website on the Green Magazine. So
That's great. So let me ask you, how would you say golf has changed since you've been covering it? So it sounds like there's the technology piece, but I'm wondering what else has evolved in the sport.
yeah, well, yeah, there's clearly the technology piece. Now, are you referring to golf at its highest level as the PGA Tour players play it, or just golf in general as a recreational sport?
I'd say both.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, the technology thing and just the depth of the fields in pro golf is really what's changed there. There's just more really good players, and the technology is better that helps them be better. So, when you win a PGA Tour event now, you're beating everyone in the field where, maybe 30 or 40 years ago, you really didn't have to worry about maybe a third or a half of the field because in general, they weren't going to be competitive enough against the best players in the world. So fields have gotten deeper and technology has gotten better, clearly. The technology is a big part of it. Yeah, golf has been it has fluctuated. 9/11 kind of killed it for a while. Um, it hurt travel, and so that hurt golf. So Myrtle Beach had peaked. Our numbers peaked in probably the late uh, 90s, early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s after the 9/11 effect happened. And then there was a decline. I've been writing about it here in Myrtle Beach for so long. So there was a decline in rounds played in this market for 14 straight years. So every year, right, the rounds were going down, the rounds were going down, and that was a national trend as well. It wasn't just here. Myrtle Beach is kind of reflective of what happens nationwide in golf because we're considered the golf capital of the world. We still have 80 golf courses here in a short area. Um, so yeah, golf decreased, 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 decreased. It kind of leveled out uh, in the late 2019, 2018, 2019, and then actually the crazy thing is COVID was the resurgence of golf because in Myrtle Beach, here in the Carolinas, South Carolina, North Carolina, golf was the one thing that never closed in either state. Golf did not shut down for one day in North Carolina or South Carolina during COVID. They just had to change their policies. Everybody got their own cart. They sanitized, they sanitized everything between uses. That you couldn't pull the flag out, so they tried to limit. They just put a thing in there, the little foam thing, so the ball would just stay near the top. You didn't have to pull the flag. So they did all these things um, to make it viable during COVID, and literally golf never closed. Everything else closed. The beach closed in Myrtle Beach. They closed the beach
Hmm.
because people were started congregating on the beach too much. So they were like, okay, nobody's allowed on the beach anymore. But they never closed golf. You couldn't go to the beach, but you could go play golf. So and that nationwide, it was similar. Everything else was closing. Golf was remaining open in most places. So people started to gravitate to golf to do something, to pick up a new sport that they could actually get out of the house and do. And so the numbers have increased greatly. Myrtle Beach's rounds, if you compare them to 2019, right before COVID hit, I'd say they're up 20 to 25% at least from that period over marginal increases over year. So That's the interesting thing about golf. It's actually currently in the midst of a resurgence that is based on the coronavirus. So
That's interesting. It's interesting how COVID has had such unexpected impacts across so many different facets of society. This is another one I had no idea about.
yeah,
Makes sense though.
yeah, yeah. Again, yeah. I don't know if golf was going to have a resurgence anyway, but it COVID definitely expedited it if it was going to, because it immediately people started playing golf. That's what everybody did because it was available and nothing else was. So yeah, pretty wild how that happened. But so golf is continuing with that resurgence and trying to build on it. And Myrtle Beach is a big part of that. They spend a lot of money marketing and put a lot of money into marketing dollars, and both regionally and nationally. And so yeah, the market has had a resurgence over the last 4 or 5 years that is continuing now. So yeah, which is good if you're in my field, in my business.
Cool.
So Tanya, is there anything that you would like to chip in and add regarding golf or NASA and space travel?
Well, it looks like we're about to wrap things up today. We do have some questions for both of you. I see we've covered the space industry and the work that Alex is doing with the Mars Fund. So, our questions are about the private companies that are networking for business and the absolute must do's that they maybe should take some time away from the business and explore the city. Earlier, we were talking about how events are becoming decentralized. So, one example that I had, the two examples were NYC Tech Week, and also we see the World Cup is spread across uh, many different cities. What is your takeaway on that, Alex? You say that you travel a lot for the Mars Fund. I know that they have tech weeks in San Francisco as well as LA and Boston, um, with similar across the citywide independent events in different locations across the city. And also, I think in the Middle East, in Dubai, where they have their blockchain week, is similar. It's spread out across the city. So this is trending. I'd like to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to have greater diversity of event styles. Conferences are very good and they have their purpose, but it's also good to have more types of opportunities for people to have more exchanges. Some of the best ideas come out of a lot of random exchanges that people have. It says, "Oh, I have an idea." Someone else says, "Well, I have another idea. Let's put them together," and we have something new that no one else thought of before. And sometimes you don't necessarily get those interactions when things are more rigid. So if you have more flexible event styles where people are participating, doing activities across the city, I think that there's the potential for that to be conducive to a lot more creativity. And when you're talking about things in tech, a lot of the time that can be really important and hopefully transformative.
Absolutely. Any insights there, Alan, on sporting events uh, that you may have experienced recently that are similar to like the World Cup? It's different destinations.
Yeah, and you mean as far as in terms of the travel and the stay, or just
Just the openness of it, open versus closed.
yeah. Yeah, well, I one of the more interesting things I covered in the last year was the College World Series. I do cover Coastal Carolina University athletics here in Myrtle Beach, um, as a freelance writer for a newspaper chain in the area. So I went and spent 2 weeks in Omaha, Nebraska, and covered the College World Series, 8 teams down to one over the 2 week period. And yeah, it's always I always love to go to events that have similar to the World Cup, actually, you know, different sides that all come together. Like there were 8 different teams there, so you had 8 different fan bases all coming together into one place, to root for their team, and the interaction between the teams and between the fans. And so yeah, that that was probably the most interesting thing that I've covered over the last year.
Just sticking
Yeah.
with the world. I'm sorry, go ahead,
No,
Alex.
I was gonna say yeah, because I was at the World Cup and it was really interesting. Similarly, just to see these, this international festival where everyone was coming from all across the world with many different backgrounds, but they all came to share a common love, and that was a really cool thing to see.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in to hear why the future of business travel is about balancing the boardroom with the ballpark, and how these new event strategies are reshaping the global economy. So, if you want to keep this conversation going, check out the links in the description box below. Join our community and let us know which city you're headed to next. I'm Tanya McPherson. Thank you so much, Alan Blondin and Alex Burg, for joining us today.